My quest to clear my shelves of garbage while building a unique tabletop gaming setup continues, and the moment has come to build another classic suited to many genres and settings.
Lava pits!
In their construction, I tried a few new tricks and materials. Had some successes, suffered some failures, but you'll see for yourself as we make this hot new terrain look so damn cool. Let's dive in. I've got two pieces planned here, something simple and something fancy. Our fancy piece begins with a nifty little chunk of garbage. This piece of plastic is the slice of the top of a jar of protein powder, left over from my previous project, which I have a link in the description. But any circular scraps of trash will do here. I'll pop it on top of some foamcore board, which is an absolute staple in DIY terrain, and draw around it to sketch out a rough blobby footprint for our piece. Then cut it out, trace it, cut out another piece, and glue them together. I do this for durability's sake and to prevent warping. Now for the second terrain piece, I wanted to do an elongated shape, and thankfully what's left of the board can facilitate. As before, I cut it out, glue it down, and then set aside both of these bases to dry. Now it's time to get crafty. Ultimately, I need this jar cut closed, so I trace it on a piece of cardboard and cut out a semicircle. Not a bad fit. Then I do it again for the front. I think they came out pretty nice, so I'm just going to use my hot glue gun and secure them in place. And we have our Lavafall's skeleton. Alright, switching back over to the bases, both of which need to be beveled to build a more natural slope. But this rectangular base is a little too square for my liking, so I slice off the corners and cut some notches into the sides to make it look a little more natural. When both sides are appropriately trimmed, I sand them down, gets rid of all the paper dangly bits, and it just looks nice and smooth. Now I can glue my waterfall skeleton to the base. We're going to be gluing a bunch of shit to its back and to the base itself. Now let me introduce a material I use all the time but rarely for this channel. Meet corkboard. You can get this at big box stores, and it's absolutely clutch for building up rocky terrain. Starting with the long base as a warm-up, I break off pieces by hand because those ragged edges look natural, and I glue them in a ring around the base. As I go, I want to make sure that there's still plenty of space for the lava in the center, and a semi-random placement helps keep things visually interesting. And I'll put two little islands in the center, why not? Back over to our lava waterfall. I start by building a full ring around the base as before, but as I build up around the support, I try to break off larger pieces for less gaps, and do occasionally use a knife to cut a notch into the interior side of the corkboard so it fits nicer around the curve. I work until the plastic part of the structure is completely covered, and as a finishing touch, I'll add a little rocky outcropping to the center of the falls, just because I think it looks neat. And after the glue is dried, I'm going to bevel the exterior ends of the corkboard, but just the pieces glued directly to the base, because this should help the next step, which is spackling paste. I apply it around the edges to blend the cork and foam core and seal any gaps, which is important later. As for the cork around the falls, I just slather, absolutely gloop that shit on there, going nuts. Not even trying to be perfect or anything, just making sure that there's still cork visible at the end of it all, and then set it aside to dry. Let us turn our attention back to the lava. So when I usually make bubbles for something like this, I'll use a modeling epoxy, but I saw something that was silly, but crazy enough to work. Fucking googly eyes. I'll be damned if it didn't make me giggle, and I simply glue them down in the lava areas, here and there, kinda random. And afterwards, we get to the fun part. For this, you'll need white glue. A ton of it. And what we're gonna do is just dump it into the lava pools. What this is meant to do is create a smooth, fluidy surface, but the way it dries around the edges of the bubbles makes them look like they're properly erupting out of the pool. I probably used way too much here, but that's okay, I think we'll all survive. Now, I had hoped it would be thick enough to dry in blobs along the vertical face of the waterfall, which it wasn't, and didn't, but that's okay, I'll improvise. Using my trusty hot glue gun, I run rivulets from the top of the falls to the bottom all the way across, close enough so that they're touching side by side. Additionally, I'll use the hot tip of the glue gun to blend the ends of the rivulets atop the falls and into the roof of the structure beneath. I think this may work, but now I have to pick these stupid strings off. I hate hot glue strings. For consistency's sake, I'll lightly cover these areas with white glue too. Lastly, we finish up construction by creating a ground texture. First a coat of wood glue around the base, followed by a random sprinkling of kitty litter here and there, and a full coating of sand. Once that's dry, it'll be time to paint! I always start terrain off with a coat of black paint, and this time around I'm going to use some black Krylon primer. I'm not worried about paint binding to materials, it's just that using the rattle can is so much faster. Once it's aired out and brought inside, I'll coat the whole thing with burnt umber. As always, I'm using craft paint, cheap and widely available. I'm introducing a new color to my terrain paint set now. Flag red, very patriotic. The lava section needs a nice warm foundation, and it'll take 2 coats, but I'm okay with the splotchiness and imperfect coverage. Lava does have dark areas in it after all. Switching back over to the ground, I mix up burnt umber and parchment till it's a nice chocolatey gray color, and dry brush that over the ground texture. And that's that for the dirt. From here on out, we can focus entirely on the lava. After that second coat of red is applied, we're going to start throwing in some new colors, starting with yellow, but not out of the tube. I'm mixing it in with red until we get a salmon, I guess? I was hoping for orange, but that's okay. I just stipple that around the lava, being sure to leave red around the edges of the pool. No rhyme or reason, just bullshitting with the brush. Next stage, same mix, but different ratio. More yellow this time, trying to leave a little bit of the previous layer showing around the edges. Now, as we lighten up the lava, be sure to focus on the bubbles, as these will eventually be the brightest part of the pools. And each coat you apply helps the colors you put over top of them to get to that level. Now here's the yellow straight from the tube. Same process again. We're getting to the home stretch here. I'm mixing parchment in with the yellow for this part, and for the flat areas, I'm being very conservative with its application, just a touch here and there. But when it comes to the bubbles, big ol' spot right on top, so it stands out nice and bright. But let's take it back a step or two and pull out the burnt umber again. With it, I'm gonna add a few little chunks floating in the pools here, concentrated more towards the edges, but I'm not afraid to throw 1 or 2 into the brighter areas. I do a little mix of dots and triangles, keeping it random. I'm also going to line the edge of the pools with this umber, create some contrast between the sections of the terrain pieces, but also help hide any of the brighter paints I got on the ground. With our paints all dry, it's time for the finishing touch. I've got some Woodland Scenics flock here, and I'm using wood glue to affix it here and there to the dirt. Not only will this tie it in with the rest of my terrain, but now I've got some lovely red-green contrast happening in these pieces on their own. Awesome. This project for me could basically be summarized with the phrase, whoops, that worked. The hot glue waterfalls, building cork cliff faces, and googly eye bubbles. Several things I haven't tried before, in addition to slight tweaks to techniques that I have. But overall, I've got to say I'm really jazzed with how these turned out. I think this is one of the better terrain pieces I've made recently, and honestly cannot wait to get a game going with these at the center of the table. Thanks for watching another My Builds Are Garbage. This is Bristle. Happy painting.